Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Mac Story.
Hello, and thanks for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast today. So today I'm going to talk to you about what happens when your team doesn't feel that you care about them. And I'm really talking about you when I say when you don't care about them. I'm talking about the leaders of the organization, especially the top leaders, the top managers that the people interact with, say at the plant level or the company, even the company level. If it's a smaller company, if it's a company with 10,000 people, I'm talking about the people in the location, the leaders in the location where the people work. But anyway, this post was inspired by a video I saw back in the middle of May, which is when I'm actually recording this podcast. I record my podcast out in advance sometimes when I know I'm going to be busy and have a lot going on. I have to put a lot of recorded sessions in the queue and get them scheduled out. That's what I'm doing today. But anyway, I watched a 10-minute video on LinkedIn. It just came across my feed when I was posting, as I do every day. And the video was from a lady named Sherry Garcia. And I may be saying her first name wrong, but she spells it Cheri Garcia, Garcia. But I'm going to call her Sherry right here. And she's actually the founder and a recruiter at her company, which is called Cornbread Hustle. That's a cool name. You won't forget that name probably, but it's a cool name. And she actually is the founder of a staffing agency for second chances. So people who've been incarcerated, who maybe got into some trouble, but they're back in society and they're trying to reshape their life and take advantage of a second chance. And she works at a staffing agency to support those folks. And she's actually one of those people. So her content's pretty motivating. So if you interested in checking her out, you may want to go look her up on LinkedIn. She's actually operates out of Dallas, the Dallas, Texas area. That's where her LinkedIn profile shows. But anyway, she did a video back in the middle of May. In the video, she was talking about different ways to reduce turnover and how to create a more positive work environment. And she was basically sharing a couple of different tips, and everything she shared was right on the mark. She understands leadership. I don't know how much she's actually read about it or studies about it, but she understands it from some background, either her natural values or she's grown and developed these values, but she was right on the money. But she said something, she was talking about when companies don't care about their people. And she was talking about when they have cookouts. And I'm going to expand upon what she said, but basically what she was saying, when a company has a cookout and they have bonus incentives and things like that, when that's all they do, they don't make much of a difference. So she's talking about the pay. She used some examples. She didn't give her client's name, but she gave examples of clients who pay more, but they have higher turnover than clients who pay less, $3 or $4 an hour less in her example. And she's basically talking about then the pay. It's not just about the pay. The pay matters. You got to pay enough. But once you're paying enough, it's something else that's causing your turnover. And what she's talking about is when leaders don't care. So I'm going to expand upon that. But in her example, she was talking about the cookout. If you have a cookout, you bring the folks in, you give them some hamburgers, hot dogs, or steaks. I worked at a company, they used to grill steaks for us. The leaders would get out and they'd bring a big grill out to the front of the plant, put it in the parking lot. And I was working in a manufacturing plant, and the leaders would stand out there in the middle of the summer. A lot of times they'd be drenched in sweat and trying to stay cool, get them some shade, and be cooking steaks for everybody in the plant. So that was a good thing. And that's what she's talking about, that the cookouts are a good thing. Company dinners, employee appreciation dinners and things like that. Those are good things. But what her point was, if you don't care, it doesn't really matter that you're doing those things. That was kind of the basics of what she was saying. So I'm gonna tie it to leadership. My language. I'm gonna start talking about what that inspired me to think about while I'm doing this video. Because what's happening, I mean, it happened to us at different places that I worked. You know, if we felt like we were not cared about, whenever leaders would do a company dinner or lunches, one place bring in ice creams, another place they might bring in a popcorn machine and make popcorn at breaks and give out popcorn and cokes, all kind of ways. Basically companies feeding their people. That is an awesome thing to do. That's a nice thing to do. Some companies don't even do that. But what I want you to know is some companies that do that are wasting it. And it's what Sherry was talking about, because the people don't care that you're doing it. And another thing she said was, then the leaders feel offended because they're doing all these nice things and the people don't care. What I want you to know is the reason the people don't care is because the leaders don't care. It's the why behind what they're doing. And it's the perception of the people they're doing it for or doing it to. Feeding the people. Let's say if you think I don't care about you, but I'm trying to feed you and do something nice for you, but I don't care about you because my behavior and my actions prove it. So now you get us all together and you feed us a nice meal. I can tell you what we felt like because we talked about it all the time. You may be one of us that's had that happen to you, where you work in a bad environment and then they do something nice for you. And almost without an exception, most people feel manipulated when that happens. And Sherry didn't say that, but that's what I'm saying because I lived through it. And I've sat around the table when people were eating the nice steak or whatever meal was being provided. Barbecue was a big one sometime. But I've sat at the table as a worker, a frontline entry-level worker, and heard all of us talking about how the dinner was just to manipulate us because we felt used. We felt used and abused. I've also been at places where we truly felt cared about. Then when we have a cookout, it actually had meaning behind it. We felt like that was an extension of the leaders caring about us. The other way, we felt like it was pure manipulation or leaders just checking off a box because they got to do something nice for their employees. They've been working them to death for 10, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for months. We should feed them or buy them some pizza or something like that. More out of feeling guilty for working us to death, not actually caring about us. This applies to any kind of gifts you're giving your team members. I highly recommend you do all these things, but what I recommend before that is care about the people. If you want to get something out of the good you're trying to do for the people, care about them first. Not with your words, with your behaviors and your actions. It doesn't matter what your words say. It matters what you do. And ultimately, it matters how you make the people feel. That's what's going to determine when you feed your team. If you're a leader of people, you're feeding your team, you're doing some kind of, something similar to that. The way they feel normally is going to determine if they see your gesture as manipulation or appreciation. If they're seeing it as manipulation, you wasted time and money and energy and effort because they're looking, they see right through you because it's about how they feel. And again, it doesn't matter what you say, it's about how they feel. It's the same way with you. It doesn't matter what somebody's telling you they're doing to you. What matters is how you feel about what they're doing to you. So I highly encourage you, feed the people, go sit out there with them, enjoy the meal with them. But far in advance of that, make sure they feel like you care about them. You know how you do that? And Sherry was talking about this too. And she was talking about the HR leader, the HR manager. I'm talking about any leader. And what she was saying was, get out of the office and go out and visit with the people. Not once a month. Every day. Go see the people. I supported a client one time. a president of a small organization. Her and the VP was having a little problem, and it was a small organization. It was a big organization, but it was a small location. And I don't know. I'm getting distracted here. I don't know if you can hear. There's a horn going off outside of my house somewhere. There's a vehicle, I guess, a security alarm going off. Maybe you can't hear that. I'm gonna pretend you can't, but I can, and it's distracting me. But so this was a large organization with multiple locations, and each location was fairly small. There's about maybe 10 or 15 people who actually worked in each location. And basically it was, you kind of go into the location. You go through the door, there's a lot of seating, there's a lot of offices. Basically it's a big rectangular building with a bunch of offices kind of on the perimeter. And then there's a counter with several people in it. And so when we were there was a bunch of conflict between the president and the vice president of that site. And as we started talking to people, one day we were in there multiple days. One day the president comes in and she says, she was rushed. She's apologized for not having time. And I said, yeah, you probably didn't get time to say hello to the folks today when you passed through trying to get in here to us. She said, I don't hardly ever have time to speak to them. She said, today wasn't any difference. It's like that every day. And I said, you mean you come in a lot of days and you don't even have time to speak to the people? She said, no, I come in, I go straight to my office and I get to work. And by the time I got any awareness of what's going on, it's the end of the day. And I can't even imagine being this type of leader. Because I can tell you this, she might have walked in and thought she didn't say anything to her team, but this is what really happened. She walked in and screamed from the top of her lungs, I could care less about you. She didn't make a sound, but that's what she was screaming. Her behavior was screaming that when she walked in. That one little thing. She thinks I'm the leader, I'm busy, I'm too busy to. It would take literally 5 minutes at most to walk by, smile, wave, hello, even if you didn't talk. Beyond hello. Walk by, hey, morning, hello, good to see you today. And be if that was a minimum she did, she could do it in less than 5 minutes to everybody in the organization at her site. But as a leader, she's too busy to do that. She didn't understand. She walked right past her work every morning so she could go do her job. She didn't understand the work she needed to do was with the people. She was more focused on going in and probably opening her email and starting taking calls, start dealing with appointments, but she was just overlooking the people on a regular daily basis. And the sad part, she admitted it right there that morning, and she didn't even think anything about it. She didn't even have a level of awareness that it even mattered. She was just telling us how busy she was. She didn't understand she was telling us how much she didn't even care about the people. And if you ask her, though, I promise you, she'd say she cared about them. What do you think if you were at work and your boss literally come in every day, walked within 10 feet of you, didn't even look at you, didn't even speak to you, zipped right on by? Imagine everybody in that small organization. They felt like that every day. And probably when they needed to talk to her, they had to make an appointment. And then she'd be late, or she'd cancel the appointment, or she wouldn't say nothing. She just wouldn't show up. Pretty sad. I'm going to tell you, with people, little things are the big things. There's no telling how much productivity would increase, how much turnover would decrease, how much engagement would increase, how much quality would improve, how many ideas for improvement would be brought forward if people just truly felt cared about. But ultimately, this problem, it goes way up in the org chart. It's usually way up near the top where this is happening. And ultimately, it is the very top that's allowing it to happen, where leaders are not taught how to lead. Ever. It happens in so many companies. I mean, big companies. I heard someone else recently talking about, I think it was a podcast or an audio. I can't remember where I listened and hear so much stuff, but they were talking about the frontline team leaders, entry level supervisors, the frontline leaders of the workforce. Most often, they're never given any development. But you get farther up in the org chart, the ones where leaders are leading small teams of leaders a lot of times, or even big teams of leaders. But you get farther up in the org chart, the people who usually sit in their air-conditioned office and don't ever go out to the front lines, don't ever go talk to the workforce in most organizations, those people up at that level, they're the ones who usually have a budget for leadership development. And most of the time, they're just being given a budget. Sometimes they're expected to go do some training. A lot of times they're sent to conferences, but it's just checking boxes. A lot of times they go, they don't get nothing out of it because they don't care about it. Their leader don't care if they get anything out of it because they're just checking off a box. But the sad thing is the leaders who actually want some leadership, and I know I deal with these folks all the time. The people who want some development, those people on the front lines, frontline team leaders, supervisors, those people who are new to leadership positions, no matter what level it's at, those people, they're hungry for development. Hardly ever do they get it. But they get blamed for not getting results. They get all the blame. But I've done some other podcasts previous to this one. The blame goes several levels up in the org chart. And it's not really blame. That's the wrong word. But the people on the front lines and the frontline leaders, they do get blamed. But the right word is who's responsible. And you got to go up into the org chart, several layers up above wherever the problem shows up or the perceived problem shows up. You got to go several layers up in the org chart to find the root cause of that. And ultimately, it's all the way to the top. You want to save yourself some time, just go to the top leader. Why is there no development? Pretty sad. You go find an organization where they don't have a lot of development down on the front lines and the entry-level leadership positions. You'll find organizations with a lot of turnover. All the way from top to bottom, there's usually a lot of turnover. But anything, back to the main message here, anything leaders do, good or bad, either way, it's going to be perceived through the eyes of the people. If they feel cared about, all the good things that leaders are actually doing, even if they're just checking off a box, because somebody says we got to do this every year. You know, if it's just going through the motions, like a lot of companies, they do Christmas dinners, then they wonder why people they don't feel a lot of appreciation from it. If you're a leader and you're responsible for hosting these employee dinners and luncheons or whatever, how much appreciation do you really get? How many people send you emails out of the workforce? How many people send you emails and thank you? How many people stop by your office and thank you? I hope it's a lot, because if they feel cared about, it will be a lot. If they don't feel cared about, you ain't hardly ever going to get any feedback. And also, if you're not out walking the floor or the job site, wherever the people are that's working, the people who got fed, if you're not even ever going out there to see them afterward, they can't even thank you in person. They gotta go come to you. They gotta do the work of coming to find you. I encourage leaders, you go to the people. They're doing enough work. I always used to say, if I ever had opportunity to build a manufacturing facility, there would be no front offices. That's what we always talked about. There's always the people in the front office and then the people out there in the plant doing the work. And it was always a divide. And the people in the front office, I supported one company one time, and one of the ladies working in the front office, she'd been there 13 years, never even been out into the plant, ever. 13 years. I'm talking about probably 50 yards from her desk. All she had to do is get up, walk out there, and walk through the door, and she'd be in the plant. Never even been out there. Didn't have leaders up in the upper levels who thought that was important. If they thought it was important, it'd be part of the process and the expectations. When you first come there as a new employee, no matter what level you're at, you'd go out and meet the people. You may spend a day walking from one department to the other, interacting with them. You may actually go out and work with them. See what it is they do and what they go through, and do that periodically. That's something top leaders can make happen if they care about it happening. But if all they do is want every individual member on their team working nonstop on their job from the time they walk in to the time they walk out, they're not going to value what I just talked about. That kind of leader, if they see you out in the plant and you work in the office, they're going to be wondering, they're going to be stopping to ask you, why are you out here? They're liable to be chewing on you and gnawing on you for being away from your desk. These top leaders, in that case, are preventing relationships from being built. No wonder there's a us and them mentality. But if you want to become a high-impact leader, you got to do things high-impact leaders do. You don't have to wait for your boss to tell you. You read books, you listen to podcasts, watch videos, whatever it is that helps you grow. You start figuring out how high-impact leaders operate, and then you start operating that way. The organization may still have a terrible culture, but you won't be a terrible leader. And what's going to happen is you're going to perform, you're going to get results, you're going to get opportunities to elevate yourself and grow in that organization and make a bigger impact if you want to. And you may do that, or you may not do that, but you're going to learn a lot, and you may walk out the door and go get a job at a better company with a better leader and a better culture. But while you're leading a team anywhere, regardless of the culture, your team needs to know you care about them. Then all those little things you do will be seen as appreciation instead of manipulation. Hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Talk to you next time.
Make it happen, or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Mac Story's Blue Collar Leadership series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Mac's books, programs, special offers, certifications, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.